beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right-doing. There is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make sense. Hi everyone. I met AndreCarl through a mutual friend a few years ago and have run into him at various social occasions a few times since then. What always stood out for me about him was a certain sense of serenity that he has inside him. When I started thinking of people whom I could speak to for this podcast, he was one of the first people I could think of. I have always been intrigued about what it is that he has that give him such a calm aura. So, today is the day that we find out. I hope you get something out of it. Here goes. Andre.
Yes, Freddie.
How are you doing?
Very good, thanks, man.
I'm glad to hear that. Thank you so much for doing this. I
It's
realize
only a
that
pleasure.
everybody's so busy. So for somebody to take an hour out of their day, I really appreciate it.
You're
Thank
welcome, truly.
So, the first thought that comes to mind is name-surname combination is very Afrikaans.
Yes.
But you're very English.
Well, I'm tweetalig.
Okay.
My mom was English, and her mother was on the British side. She was a child on her parents on the British side of the Boer Wall.
Oh my word.
And my father is Afrikaans and comes from the Karoo, and his mother, my grandmother, was in an internment camp, in a concentration camp under the British. So it just shows how quickly history can change. Eh?
You had a clothing brand.
I did, yes.
AndreCarl.
AndreCarl. Huge.
You must know this, but the day that Nelson Mandela was released,
Yes.
I wore your shorts.
To the parade.
I wasn't planning on being on the parade.
Yes.
I was on Clifton Beach, and I was actually in the army in those days.
Yes.
And I was doing selection for the Military Psychological Institute at Langebaan.
Mm-hmm.
So I was living in the officers' mess in Langebaan.
Yes.
And went to the beach, and not knowing Cape Town, it needed to take a train back to Milnerton.
Yes.
And ended up on the station where everything was happening.
Yes,
So got caught in a riot where the car was shaken and everything.
Yes.
And all I thought was, oh my God, I look so camp in these trousers. So your brand is ingrained in my head as the day that Nelson Mandela was released. I wore your shorts. Those were lovely clothes.
Yeah,
what happened to the brand?
So what happened was the company became very big. We supplied chain stores and we were exporting. And then after independence, South Africa became part of the global economy, and the duties that governed the importation of clothing into South Africa was lifted, and we just couldn't compete.
Okay.
The interesting thing is that during apartheid, there was some protection for the Garment Workers Union. The Garment Workers Union protected and fought very hard, and they were very strong to protect the clothing workers. But now we are importing clothing from sweatshops in the East with much less protection, you know.
Which
so
is
it's actually ironic, so we couldn't compete. So it is, I always used to say, you must never say never, but I say I will never go back in the clothing industry, and here I am.
I just want to say, we're sitting with a whole rack of t-shirts hanging behind us.
But this is now more about, we buy the t-shirts in from Mauritius, they get manufactured, they're very good quality. And then, so this is, they're just really canvases for design. So we spend our days now designing. Don't have a huge staff. I don't want to get too big. I want to be able to travel a lot. I want freedom, and I want it light.
Yeah.
I want to travel light.
The light through life. I like that. So you said father comes from the Karoo. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Stellenbosch, in Bannock. Beautiful valley. But that was probably my most important formative years of my life, was during that time.
Okay.
So I went to Paul Roos Gymnasium, which is a dual medium school.
Was it dual medium at that stage already?
Yeah, it was, yes.
Okay.
But I was in an English class, but most of our classes were in English and Afrikaans.
Okay.
Mostly probably more Afrikaans.
Just 10% the flack you must have received English van der Merwe. Van der Merwe, what are you doing?
that is true. And also being, knowing at that point in time that I was gay and having to hide that.
Oh my word.
It was a very difficult time. And I actually decided one year to go to boarding school. And I went to my parents, and they said, well, my parents had this philosophy that we have to make our own money.
Okay.
And so I started my first business, I think I was 16 or something.
Oh, my word.
And so I had money. So I said, okay, I'll pay for myself. And it wasn't expensive in those days. They eventually did pay.
So what made you decide you want to go to boarding school?
Well, I had a hard time. My dad and I didn't see eye to eye.
Okay.
I wanted to change, you know. And that change was a quintessential year of my life. I actually developed social skills instead of being sort of insecure, quiet boy, keeping out of the limelight.
Yeah.
I was voted as head boy of the boarding school. I didn't accept it. I left again. I had to change my mind 2 years later. And then I became a prefect, leerlingraad in Paulrus. Now, leerlingraad in Paulrus is normally academic, sport, of which both of them I'm not very good at. No.
Not?
No.
So you broke the mold, the whole Afrikaner
Yes.
Broederbond thing. You
Yes.
came in and said...
And I was an art
let's do it
student.
differently.
Well, I didn't really use that position as well as I probably could have. You know, I had a lot of friends, and I was learning to jol, and you know, and I was probably a useless student council.
Okay. I still believe I'm the worst head boy our school ever had.
Were you head boy?
Yeah.
Wow, that's impressive.
God knows why. It just, I don't know. But anyway, listen, so did you grow up Christelijk Nationaal?
So my father was Dutch Reformed,
Okay.
and my mom was Catholic.
Okay, so you definitely grow up with religion.
Yeah, no, very strong. We went to church every Sunday. But my brother and I, my mom, one of the conditions of her getting married to my father was that the children had to be Catholic.
Okay.
So we went to Catholic church, and I think that was really important. So my entire life, we went to church with people of all races, and there was never, there was never a race issue. So that was something that bugged me a lot about the rest of South Africa from a very young age, was the fact that, that they could justify Christianity, they could justify apartheid in the name of Christ.
Yeah.
Intelligent, high-ranking people in the Dutch Reformed Church and also in government.
Yeah.
And people bought into that. It just astounded me. So that was one thing that I had a problem with religion, was how it could be manipulated, and the people that I saw as Christians were not, in my opinion, what I sort of understand Christianity to be. Love thy neighbor, give thy other cheek, etc.
Absolutely, yeah.
So and love thy enemy, and forgive, and so on. So that was my biggest problem, and I realized from a very young age that I was gay. So and in the Dutch Reformed Church, the school, the Catholic Church, all my friends, I think even medicine at the time, really believed it was an aversion.
Yeah.
And the churches and the schools, you in the reborn Christian side of religion, believe that you were demon possessed, and that you were, and that would really. And I read a lot of books. I can never stress this enough. When you look at history or things in retrospect, it's very difficult to understand the depth of fear, and also the nuances.
Yes.
For instance, can you imagine a child going through puberty? And this is still happening today. And the gay rights, we live in a bubble in Cape Town. But if you look at the rest of the world, in Russia, East
Absolutely,
Europe,
yeah.
Middle East, etc., Africa. When I grew up, I believed I was going to hell. But at the same time, I was inside me were bubbling up all these sexual feelings, and probably never stronger than then was, when you're going through puberty.
Absolutely.
You're so horny, and I just, that's what it was. I had this conflict in my life, and I was handling it. This is the other important thing. I was handling it completely on my own.
Yeah.
I was too scared to speak to a teacher. I was too scared to speak to, obviously, a doctor or my parents or the church
Never
or whatever.
My parents would have been the last people that I would have spoken to. How old are you, Andrew?
57, just turned 57 the 4th of January. So this was the 70s, That's why I wrote Morphe.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to try my best to describe to people how it feels to be on the other side of the fence, and to feel how what persecution really feels like. I was once invited to meet the deputy president, and she was amazing. We were at tea for about an hour and we chatted. And I said to her, try and imagine the prejudice that we felt. Yes, we could go to all the beaches, we could sit on the white benches and stuff like that. But can you imagine the prejudice where you're not part of a group, where there's no affirmation from television or friends, or there's no role models, there's no... You're scared your parents are going to find out, you're scared your friends are going to find out, you're scared. That's why the word Morphe was the word that I feared the most, But then I went through this searching process. I thought, okay, well, remember that my entire background then was religion, my strong Christian faith. Those days
can I quickly interrupt you there? So while you and your brother and mom went to the Catholic church, did dad engage in the Afrikaans church?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So from both sides, the religion was
yes.
present. Okay.
Yes. In those days we had, hall on Fridays and Mondays, and it was always open with religion. There was religious studies, but it wasn't really religious studies. It was Christian studies.
Absolutely.
People, if you didn't believe in God, or rather in a religion, you were ostracized. This was really a serious thing.
Did you know of anybody who openly declared that it didn't believe in God?
There was maybe one or two people at school, but they were really oddballs. Yeah. I realize now they were probably very enlightened, well, very brave.
Yeah.
That thought things through and obviously often maybe thought about things that everybody else had thought about.
Yeah.
But we're just too scared to actually formulate the thought. But I did. I think it was in Standard 7 or Standard 8. I can't remember. I became a reborn Christian in a Christian Union camp. So we used to go away on these Christian Union camps, and there was sort of not pressure, but there were people that if you wanted to talk to them, you could talk to them. And I never revealed my homosexuality, but I wanted to be cured because I believed that I was demon possessed. So I was reading. I didn't say, "Look, cure me." I thought that if I become a reborn Christian, I would be cured.
Yeah.
And it actually opened up a vast amount of questions in my mind. Being reborn and Christianity and so on.
Okay.
But my biggest concern at the time was I'm becoming a Christian because that was my what I was that I've been exposed to. If I was exposed to Islam, I would become a Muslim. If it was a Buddhism, I would become a Buddhist, etc. So it bugged me a lot that this choice was basically circumstantial in a way.
Okay.
Like Christians would tell you a lot of other things. They say you're chosen and al die goed, but and it also bothered me because Christianity believes that if you're not a Christian, you're not a reborn Christian, you're going to hell.
Yeah.
And that did not make sense to me. So there was I can go on and on about the number of things that bothered me and didn't make sense to me. But I had these 3 mentors at school.
That's where you were.
And the one mentor was a librarian, a woman called Annie de Toy. She was sort of an eccentric woman, but I loved her. She was wise and very, very religious, but she just had a wonderful way of seeing life, and she was just like there was a connection. So Mr. Toy one night it was in Cedarburg, and it was also sort of a camp. We were hiking there, but she went with to help with the food and stuff. And I spoke to her, and I said to her, why I'm a Christian because I'm in a Christian environment and because I had a Christian background. I'm not convinced that I would have chosen Christianity without knowing anything about Christianity, because at that point in time I knew nothing about Buddhism or Islam or anything. So what would have been the chances? And why would you? So I'm not really. This is something that's bugging me. And she said something which had a really big impact on my entire life. She said, "Well, why don't you ask God?" So I thought to myself, well, if I don't believe in God so strongly in all of the, that makes sense? Not listening to all the fear mongering about going to hell and not being saved, all the other people burning in hell and so on. This is a very honest, gentle, concerned young Christian asking God the Father.
Yeah.
And I believe that God said to me, because I prayed about it a lot. God said to me, whatever you're comfortable with,
Okay.
I realized then that my Christianity was religious based. And I wanted to free myself from that, because there was a lot of things about religion I wasn't accepting. The apartheid, the Catholicism and all its sins and controls and money and rules. And then also I was starting to read about the history of the Bible and how it was written and how it was, and the contradictions and a lot of laws which made no sense to me. And in any case, there was a lot of things. But in the Christian Union period, the reborn Christian period, I became very acutely aware of a spiritual component to the planet, to the cosmos, to the world, to the universe, and that I could have a communication with this force, wherever he, she, it may be to everybody. This was my formula. This is the way I was thinking, when I was 18, 19 years old, and I thought, well, if every single person that I have a friendship relationship with is unique, how much more unique is not your relationship with this force of, whether it's energy or whatever. And I read a lot about it and so on. And then I went to the army, and that was very hard. And I came out and I was broke, and I started my business, AndreCarl Clothing. Well, actually first Devastation, and then AndreCarl Clothing, and I built that up. But I had a sort of a quiet time where I could just internalize my thoughts and communicate my feelings with God. But it became sort of routine, and it became just sort of guilt driven, and which is what religion a lot is, and so on. So then I did a meditation course.
Okay.
This is probably late 30s.
Okay.
So that was a long period.
So it was a long period.
Yes.
Did you read a lot? Did you?
I didn't. I used to read a lot about religion, but for me, you see, I was saying to myself, well, whatever I'm reading is once again somebody's opinion. They can be based in science. It can be based in. But if we're going to develop a relationship with God, then let's leave this three-dimensional tactile world alone.
Okay.
And let's develop this spiritual side.
Okay. So let's see what's there for me. Because you said earlier, if all of us are so unique, how unique can my relationship with that God be?
That's
so
right,
you went in search of that uniqueness that works for you in this.
So I realized that praying, in inverted commas, I couldn't really still my mind. I was drifting off, and it became formula. And in meditation, what it teaches you is to focus your mind.
Yes.
Now, strictly speaking, from meditation, it's really just to center yourself and to still your mind. But I realized that when I got to that, and it doesn't often happen, that I get to this absolute point where it's absolutely focused.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely pure, and there's nothing else. That's when sort of the magic happens, spiritually. And that has really seen me through my life, because I've pretty much had to look after myself all my life. I can't go to call my father and say, listen, I need a bailout, or I've never, I can't ask him to help me with my business, or it was just not, our relationship was never like that. I must say I do like meditation in a spiritual space, like in a big cathedral. I love going into a beautiful cathedral. Or there's definitely I've just been to Ecuador, and you see those churches, they are extraordinary. When the human being tries their absolute ultimate to design and paint and create a space for worship, there's something really powerful about it. I think it's extraordinary. Yeah, so that's pretty much where I am spiritually, and I think that people must be wary of listening to the present world system's thought process on spirituality or religion or whatever, what they're exposed to, opposed to their own personal relationship with that dimension.
Yeah.
And that dimension, I really believe, can be a personal journey and grow.
Absolutely. So, at what stage did you come out of the closet?
So, after the army...
So you went into the army with this, what we called in the army in those days, geslachtsrol-identifikasieprobleme, gender role identification problems.
Yes, your role.
Role, yes.
Well, when I was in Banhoek, going through puberty, everybody's going through that sort of discovery stage, and I played a lot with my friends.
Yeah.
And
as one does.
Yes.
That's that phase, yeah.
That's the phase. I realized that it was more, and I realized that for them it was not.
Did you know and understand the concept of homosexuality?
Absolutely.
Did you know what it was?
Absolutely.
Are you serious?
Absolutely.
I didn't know at all.
A lot of people didn't.
Was wrong.
Yeah.
Something was not right.
Yeah.
But I didn't know.
I think, look, my parents made it very clear that two men kissing each other, two men. There was a lot of.
So you were spoken to about these things.
Yes.
So I always say that two things my parents never warned me about: men and drugs. And look at me now. So something went wrong very seriously. You should have been very specific about where I was not supposed to go.
Yes.
So
they would speak to me. They would speak to us
about these
No,
things.
it wouldn't be a sit-down conversation, but there would be a lot of comments. And in the school, and in scripture readings and whatever.
So your guilt, because I do hear guilt.
I was definitely felt guilt. So
guilt was based in religion, because
yes,
that's
it's based
where
in
it was
religion,
from.
without a doubt.
So at what stage? Okay, back to coming out to your parents.
Mm-hmm.
How old were you when you kind of, mom, dad?
Oh, okay. So So after the army, in the army, I had a gay sex.
Okay.
But it was very dangerous, because if you were caught, you could go to War 22.
Yeah.
And when I came out of the army, I first studied art for 3 years, but I started a business at the same time at night. I decided, fuck this, I'm gay, this is who I am.
Yeah.
And I was in this free environment in art school, and I basically left home because I was starting to make money, and I got a flat in town, in Cape Town.
Did you study in Cape Town as well?
I studied in Cape Town. So, and I had a boyfriend. My parents never came to that apartment. They basically said to me, if you are gay, they didn't use the word gay, homosexual, homo, we don't want to know about it. So I thought, okay, cool.
Okay. So
You
not,
know,
we don't
I
want
didn't
to know
say-
about you.
No,
we don't
but
know
we don't-
about
it. Yeah, if you are.
Okay.
They knew. They knew.
Okay.
And then, as I said, I didn't see my parents that often. I would go and visit them with my boyfriend, and I thought if they never did, but if they ever ask me, I'll tell them.
Yeah.
Because I was living quite openly gay. I mean, I wouldn't kiss my boyfriend or hold his hand in front
Yeah.
of them or something like that. I mean, you must remember this was the early 80s. And then one day my father phoned and he said, we're having a family dinner and would you want to come on Thursday? And I said, well, I'm going to bring Grant. So my father said, well, he's not family.
Ah.
So I said, well, is Nelia coming, which is my brother's girlfriend at the time? So he said, yes.
Ah.
So I said, well, I'm sorry, but he's my boyfriend. So if he's not, if Nelia can come and he can't come, then I'm not coming. No offense, no hard feelings. You made your point, but I also have my point. And my dad was very big about it. He phoned me back. He said, okay, fine. And then he phoned me back and he said, no, that's not what I want, you know? And at that point in time, my mom was working for me. And so this was my father and I had this conversation on the phone. It was very amicable. We never really discussed it again, only after Morphe was released.
Okay.
I went with Grant, with my boyfriend.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah. But he was big enough to say, bring him.
Okay.
I don't want us, I'd rather have you as my son with your boyfriend than not have you at all. So then I told my mom, I called my mom into my office and we sat down and I said, Mom, I have to tell you something, I'm homosexual. And she said, she sat and she says, does that mean you can't go to the Catholic Church? So I said, well, I can go, but the Catholic Church doesn't really want me there at that point in time.
But you weren't going to church then anyway?
I wasn't really going to church, no.
I see a lot of you being in nature.
Yes.
So you're a biker and you travel to obscure destinations.
Yes. I've just crossed the Andes on a motorbike.
Oh, cool.
Into the Amazon.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 3 weeks ago.
And that is part of your... Am I right
passion.
if I say that's part of your spirituality for you?
Okay, I love being in nature. I think nature is just a flippin' miracle.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely beautiful.
I always think of you as nature.
Really?
for me in my head,
Yeah.
when I see you in nature, nowhere else.
Yes,
it's weird to see you in an office.
Yeah.
Really, it's kind of, you don't.
But I'm
belong
cold
there.
food.
That helps.
But you see, you see, I've got this old Land Rover, which is 23 years old.
Oh my word!
And I mean, I go. The blessing about living where we live, Namibia, Botswana, Zambia, Mozambique, all these places are close by, and there are really truly wilderness areas still there.
Yes.
Like the Kukuveld in the northern part of Namibia is just a mind-blowing experience. And so for me to be out in nature it's just amazing. It's just sort of really does feed my soul. I've never been to the Amazon before until this time. What was extraordinary, it was just walking into those jungles and submerging yourself in everything that is so alive. Being so aware that below your feet, for kilometers in either direction, there is just life.
Yeah.
Billions of species and just such an extraordinary experience. But I feel that also in the desert. We crossed the desert once on horseback for 5 days in the Namib.
Good grief.
The Namib Desert up to Swakop and rode the horses into the sea. It was extraordinary.
Good.
And at night, we'd be so tired from riding all day, and we'd just walk with our bedrolls. We had bedrolls. It was in winter, and with sheepskin liners, and it was incredible. And we'd lie under the stars, and it was a new moon, so there was no moon. So there was just this canopy of stars, and I have a passion for the stars because that's really one of the things that we are in touch with that gives us true perspective. If we start considering the distances of those lights and how vulnerable
Totally
we
so,
are.
yeah.
Now, something else that's important is, like, for instance, how, we're very blessed to live in Cape Town. Now, if you consider in our solar system, the highest temperature will be the center of the sun, just our solar system, that our star with its planets going around it. And the coldest will be sort of interplanetary space, minus I don't know how many degrees. Now, if you consider we as human beings can only, even on our planet, we can't really cope with minus without help.
Yeah.
Even probably 10 degrees, you start, things are starting to get really uncomfortable. And if we start going over 30 degrees, things start getting uncomfortable. We need some protection. But here we're sitting in t-shirt and shorts, bare feet, and in a pinprick of perfection, And the planet, it's called the Goldilocks planet because it is so perfectly positioned. Yeah. So to be in nature, I mean, these things, and you can look at the smallest leaf and whatever, it's just magnificent,
You
so
take
I do
the
like
most
nature.
amazing photographs as well. Did you do a course in photography?
No,
at any stage?
I don't think I take such
I
good
think
photographs.
you take wonderful photographs.
Look, I used to have an old Pentax with film, and I used to, because then you set the photograph up and you think of the light and you think of the aperture and the f-stops and and you because you don't have digital where you can just go.
You get basically one
so
shot.
I think those photographs in those days were probably a little bit better. Now, I mean, I love using my iPhone. I think it's just fantastic that I've got it with me and so on. But I take less and less photographs of trips. I did take of the Amazon, a few of the Amazon and crossing the Andes. But riding a motorbike, you've got this 360-degree view.
Yeah.
It's not through a section of a window. And you're feeling the wind and your smells and everything. Just stop and take your gloves off and find your phone and then take your helmet off and you'd rather just experience it.
Yeah.
And that is important for me.
I'll never forget, at some stage my ex and I bought an old Chev 4x4 crappy little thing without a roof and whatever. And the first morning I drove to work with this thing, I was on the Val Drive. That is next to Table Mountain. You virtually drive on the foot of Table Mountain for the people who don't know. And I thought, what is that smell? This smells weird. And I realized this is the mountain. This is what it smells like.
Yes.
And it was such a weird feeling to realize this is what I miss, being in my car with the air conditioner on.
Yes.
It was such a weird
And
feeling.
all the filters and everything. Yeah.
So I can imagine being on a bike, how absolutely
you feel the wind and you're also concentrating the whole time.
Yeah.
In the car you get bored because you're sitting and you're on the steering wheel.
And do you find that I love jogging? Okay, this is coming a long way. But I love jogging. But due to being a hurdler in my young age, I've got knee problems and ankle problems and God knows what. So for stages I can jog nicely and then my knees conk in and then I need to rest for a long time until the knees are okay, and then I possibly need an op, but I'm too afraid to go for that. So I just rest until the knees are okay, then I start again. So at some stage I said to my husband, I want to cycle now. And we fixed his bicycle and I went through 3 or 4 cycles. Number one, it made me far more tired than jogging did.
I think it was just probably different exercise.
Yes, but I was paranoid. And I thought to myself, but as a teenager, you cycled everywhere.
Yes.
But as a 50-year-old, you don't have the arrogance of youth anymore. But I was so nervous. And it suddenly dawned on me how careful one must be on a motorbike.
Yeah. I've just always had this philosophy to live life to the fullest, to embrace every single moment, and rather than live a safe, long, boring life.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that I made the right choice, but that's for me. That works for me. So we are all going to die, and I just hope it's gentle and quick, and not long and drawn out. You know what I mean?
I always used to say, live fast, die young, have a beautiful corpse. And I didn't die young. So it's too late to have a beautiful
57,
corpse.
so clearly it's worked so long. I know, and I mean, experienced some very, very dangerous situations. I mean, on the border was dangerous. I ended up in a wall once going guerrilla trekking in Zaire. It was in Zaire. You know, crossing I've done a number of horseback safaris. That's being on a horse in Africa, swimming them through the delta waters in the Okavango Delta. There's no cell phone reception.
Yeah.
There's, those type of things. Probably driving my car, which doesn't have airbags and things, is also probably dangerous.
So,
but life is.
In terms of spirituality, where do you see this is going to be a weird question, I hope it makes any sense, your mortality?
Well, the truth is, I don't know. I'm not. I don't believe in. Reincarnation doesn't resonate with me. I can't say it's a possibility or not. We just don't know. I believe that touching gently in everything that I do. So everybody, the car guard, the big issue salesperson, the people above you, below you, next to you, whatever, to just touch everybody and the planet as well.
Yeah.
As best we possibly can in this capitalist sort of consumerist society we live in. But that, I think, and I believe that that's very important, because if we just touch gently everybody that we came into contact with, that would spread,
Yeah.
You'd have very definite, if governments and people were, and champions of business were concerned about the people and education and children, and we would be, I think that would be very human, or rather, or I would love humans to be. I don't believe I'm doing that, or I have this philosophy because I think it's going to get me to heaven. I don't know.
Okay.
I honestly don't know. And nobody really does know.
That's what I want to say now. I
Yeah.
like the way you started your answer with we, saying nobody knows.
Yes.
And if anybody says they do, then they're
Yes.
talking bullshit.
Well, I'd like them to tell me how they know.
Yeah.
Now religion is based on faith, but the faith is based on writings that we're not 100% sure of. Now, I've always considered myself, if I was God, and I'm not a particularly good human being, and God's meant to be this really magnificent,
the ultimate
forgiving God. There's a lot of things that God seems to be allowing that I would never allow. And the idea of not being chosen to be born, some people believe you do choose. Let's say we're not. I can't remember choosing.
Yeah.
I get thrust onto this planet. I get implanted with desires and lusts and traits, and then there's these people telling me, but if I am honest to these desires, I'm going to hell forever, burning damnation forever. I just does not resonate with me.
So right now, to end off with, what do you believe in?
I believe that we must touch gently.
I love that. I really, really like it. It's such a beautiful way of saying
I
it.
believe that in this completely idealistic philosophy, look, I'm going to take a bit of time to answer your question.
Cool, go for it.
And this is something that I feel very, very strongly about. But the world is in dire straits. There are too many people on this planet, and we're polluting it at a rate which is unfathomable.
Yeah.
This is driven by selfishness and greed. And what interests me is that there are people who are driving this who have got children. Are they not thinking about their children, or do they just think that their wealth can protect them?
Yeah.
Now, how do we solve this problem? Because in this greed-driven society we live in, 50% of all the wealth in the world belongs to 1% of the population, and the rest have the rest.
Yeah.
And that's also very skewed. The really poor people, I don't know what percentage they really own of that 50%, but very little, and that's the majority. And they're getting poorer, and the rich are getting richer. So I think to myself, how do we solve this? Because the poor people are having children who are probably too many, which they can't afford and are not educated. And you can't expect an uneducated person to be concerned about
To make an educated decision.
Recycling, or the ice caps melting when they don't know where the next meal's going to come from. And so the cycle just persists, and it just snowballs, which is how we've seen this now over many generations. So I believe, this is going to sound extremely like a fantasy, but I had to think of how can this be solved. I mean, surely people must be thinking, how can this be solved? And I believe the only way to solve this is if the leaders of the world have, besides spending money on arms and ammunition, and it's scary. I read a statistic once, and I don't like quoting statistics because I don't know how accurate they are, or if I'm quoting them correctly. Yeah. But something like 8 days of military spending of the entire planet, which is enormous, can feed like how many generations of children or
oh
whatever.
My God, generations.
Not like how many years. Yeah. I think, sorry, maybe not generations. So that's maybe not wrong. I see, I'm getting this wrong. Maybe 10 years, but whatever it is. But surely we should be really. And thousands of children die per year of hunger, and yet 50% of the world food produced in the world gets trashed. Now, I mean, if you think of this as it's so skewed. It
makes no sense.
So how do we solve this? So let's say all the world's leaders have one objective: to feed and educate one generation of children, so that those children, an education that's geared towards sustainability opposed to consumerism.
Yeah.
And those kids at 16 years old are empowered to make decisions about the future, a very tough future which is waiting for them. And on this overpopulated planet, to take care of all this, of the people, and maybe have 2 children or 1 child instead of 4, 5, or 6.
Yeah.
So that's my idealistic solution, which clearly nobody's going to listen to. But I believe that's possible.
Yeah.
And my very first time at Africa Burn, I did that. That was my sculpture. I wrote it as a sentence over I don't know, half a kilometer or something, and burned the words. So what I believe in, I believe to touch gently. I believe that one must be happy, and I think happiness is a very deeply. It's something that we have to discover, that the core of happiness in our spirit. We must think it through and discover it very carefully, because our initial thing is, I'll be happy if I will get a Range Rover or if I become a multimillionaire, whatever. But if you really focus and really discover what is really genuinely important and makes you happy, I think that's important. I think it is very important to be happy, because we don't know how long this time is going to be, and it might as well be worthwhile.
Absolutely.
So things that make you happier would be contributing, changing things, being, for me, touching gently, being kind to myself as well. And I think that developing this personal relationship with my spiritual component to the universe, and my communication and link to it is important.
Awesome. I love it. Last question. Back to happiness.
Yes.
Are you happy?
Yes, I think I am. I am. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. There's definitely nothing that I want. I'm healthy, which is, and part of the discipline of my meditation in the mornings is gratitude. Is because you see we focus, you hurt your elbow, and that's all you think about, the pain.
Absolutely.
And you think, but if my elbow was right, I'll be happy. But in fact, I can breathe, and I'm
Yes.
fit, and I've got food, and I've got shelter, and I've got I've got the ability to travel, and I've got knowledge, and I've got a good education, and I'm creative, and I've got a business I absolutely love. I mean, whether it's Sunday or Monday, to me makes no difference. I love being here.
Yeah.
I live in Cape Town. I can go walk on the promenade now and look at the moon rise. Well, the moon's going to rise later tonight because it's starting. But watch the sunset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
I'm happy.
I love what you said about your elbow. I'm busy writing a book at the moment, and part of what I wrote there was that thought process of, because I have a headache, I'm having a shit day. And that's not true.
Yeah.
My day is going fine,
Yes.
but I've got a headache.
Yes.
It's a completely different way of
yes.
looking at it, isn't it?
And also the thing is, like with headaches and pain and things like that. I mean, I'm not there, but maybe to a very tiny degree. But when we can decide how much of this pain we are allowing to affect us.
Yeah.
Is to take it out and put it down there and walk around it and say, okay, you're there,
Yeah.
but you don't have to be here in my thought process. I think that we can also choose happiness. We can choose to be sad, and we can choose to be happy.
Yeah. I think that's extremely important. Andre, thank you so very much. I thoroughly enjoyed talking to AndreCarl. We met and had this chat in his office. It is such an inspiring space. The whole place is cluttered with pictures, symbols, and other creative stuff that I cannot even find words for. The whole environment shouts creativity, and I felt a surge of creative energy flowing through me. His current business is to design t-shirts, hence my reference to us being surrounded by t-shirts. For those of you who do not know yet, AndreCarl is a writer of the well-known novel called Moffie, which is a derogatory term for a gay man in Afrikaans. I've read the book twice and appreciated the finer nuances more the second time I read it. I think it is a recommended read, as it represents a snapshot of a significant part of South African history. It has also been adapted into a dance production for theatre, and I have heard unconfirmed rumours that there's a movie deal on the go. I forgot to ask AndreCarl about it. Sorry. I love how he says that we need to touch gently. That is so indicative of how I see him and what he portrays. After our chat, I feel inspired to be out in nature more and to show it the respect that it deserves. I wish him a long and happy path on this journey of life. If you have any feedback or remarks, please feel free to pop me an email or connect with me on social media. It will be great to hear from you. If you want to know more about what I do, please feel free to connect with me on my website, which is www.freddie.org.za, or find me on Facebook at www.facebook.com/freddie.org.za/ or on Twitter at @RensburgFreddie. Remember that Freddie is always spelled with an IE at the end. Be safe. Bye.